Welcome to another retirement deep dive. Today we're going to look at a hypothetical married couple that's 59 years old and they have $1 million. And their question is, do we have enough money to retire? And one of the things my viewers love about these deep dives is I'm not using $10,000 a year software, professional software. Instead, I'm using a free online tool that you can follow along with as well. I'm not sponsored by this tool. I just think it's a good tool and I want you to know about it. So let's jump in as I open up the tool here. And you can see we've got the couple here. They've got $1 million of savings and they want to retire at 60. They both turn 60 very, very soon. January of 2024 is when they turn 60. They have a life expectancy of 90. Because they're retiring, I have their annual income of 0, and their Social Security is going to come in total between the two of them at $4,000 a month, and they're going to wait till full retirement age before they start that. Again, they have a life expectancy of 90. I'm assuming that Social Security is going to grow at 3% a year. I'm assuming throughout this that inflation is going to be 3%. But you know what? You can change all of this and use the assumptions that you want to use. Okay, let's go to the next page. The next page looks at the portfolio. Here they've got $1 million and their portfolio is 50% stocks and 50% bonds. Now stay with me because I'm going to show you the results here in just a little bit. Their expenses, we're starting out with them spending $100,000 a year total, and that includes the money from Social Security once they reach full retirement age, which for them is going to be 67. So at first, all of the money, all of their living expenses is coming out of their account. I'm assuming that half of their portfolio is going to generate taxable income. So that would be money coming out of like a regular IRA or a regular 401k. Now, to the extent they have Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks, that money is going to come out tax-free, as will any money that they have in the bank because they've already paid tax on that. The taxable portion of their retirement income is going to be at 85%. And generally, somebody in this category, 85% of their Social Security, once they start taking it, is going to be considered taxable income for them. And I have an effective tax rate of 20%. Okay, now some people will say 20% seems high. Some people will say 20% seems low. Let's go to the next page where I look at income brackets. Here you can see, the 10% and the 12% income bracket in the income levels, the taxable income that you can have. It's important. Now, I'm not an accountant and this is not financial advice. This is a great tool to give you directional ideas. I wouldn't retire using just this tool. I would hire a professional. But I want you to look at this income bracket and then the standard deduction, because there's a difference between what you get paid and what your taxable, your adjusted gross income is going to be. And these days, the standard deduction is quite a bit higher. And so the average married couple, you can see here in 2024, they're going to be able to deduct the first $29,200 of their income. So the first $29,200 above adjusted gross income, where then you subtract that standard deduction, that first $29,200 is not going to be subject to federal income tax. Again, not financial advice. I'm not an accountant. But essentially, if your AGI is 0, you're not going to owe the government any money. Okay, so again, I'm trying to address why I chose 20% in this first cut. Stay with me because we're almost to the answer to the question, do they have enough to retire? Okay, the next one is our capital gains tax bracket. A lot of people don't think about, there's really two tax systems in the U.S. There's one for ordinary income and then there's one for capital gains. And on the capital gains side here, you can see that for a married couple filing jointly, they can earn $94,000 until they start getting taxed at the long-term capital gains. But that's AGI. So really they have close to $30,000 above that. So over almost $125,000 of long-term capital gains they can take before they have to start paying taxes. Again, talk to an accountant. Okay, let's look at expenses. Here you can see I've got $8,333 a month, which comes out to $100,000. So really the question is, can somebody with $1 million about to turn 60, husband and wife, can they take out $100,000 a year before they start taking Social Security? And what does that look look like? Now, this model takes into account that it's 67, full retirement age for them. They're going to start taking Social Security. So here's the results. And that dark line is the median. And again, the median is half of the people do better, half of the people do worse. This is what's called a Monte Carlo simulation. And you can see they ran 10,000 different scenarios. And these models use actual stock market data, but then randomize when those monthly returns, when those quarterly returns, or when those yearly returns happen. So essentially, they're trying to simulate for you 10,000 different lifetimes. Some of those are going to be very fortunate. You're going to end up with a lot of money, and some of them are going to be unfortunate. And that dark line is, think of it, out of that 10,000 cases, that's the 5,000th life, if you will. Half of those cases, you'd have more money than that. Importantly, you see they ran out of money at 72 with this model. Now, few people are going to be comfortable with that. So let's go back. This is the power of having a model. Let's go back and let's tweak the expenses. So instead of $8,333 a month or $100,000 a year, we're going to lower that down to $6,000 a month, $72,000 a year. And that's the only thing I've changed. In here, you can see that the median went from, in the previous model, the median was at 72. So we get an extra 10 years. Now the median case runs out of money at 83. And in some of the cases, if you're very fortunate, you're not going to run out of money. You're going to get to 90. And in this case, this person has $150,000 left. So not a whole lot. I would say a fourth of the people, maybe a third of the people would be comfortable with something like this, getting to the median case of 82. And the reason they'd be comfortable is you just don't get to 82 and say, oh my goodness, I'm out of money. You start to see what path you're on. You know, are you on one of the super lucky paths where the market does really well when you first retire? You can see here, when they first retire, the value of their account, even though they're taking out almost $75,000 a year, the value of their account keeps going up, right? In the very top, in the early years there. But again, certainly not half of the people would be comfortable with this. So let's go and tweak some more things. Okay, so now this time I'm leaving the expenses at $6,000 a month, but I'm coming in here and I want you to see that I've tweaked the stock allocation from what was 50% stocks and 50% bonds to 70% stocks. Now, this is not a portfolio for people that are faint at heart. This is going to be a volatile portfolio. You're going to feel it, but let's see what the impact is of simply, I say simply, it's probably one of the hardest things you can live through, of simply changing the asset allocation. Okay, if you see here, the median case goes to almost 83 years old. And in the best case, they die right at the top of that arc at 90. They almost have that full $1 million still left, just a tad under $900,000. And if they were unlucky, it would be 76. Now, I want to point out something that you see on the screen here. See how when they're about 67 years old, look at how their portfolio just plummets, right? It goes from $1 million down to, what are we at, 600,000 in a very short period of time. What is that? Certainly under 10 years. Like in 5 years, it goes from almost $1 million and then comes down in that steep decline and touches $600,000. That's a 40% drop, and that's the kind of thing you can get with a 70-30 portfolio. So again, doing something like that is not for the faint at heart. Okay, so instead, what I'd rather see people do is cut back on their expenses and not take an asset allocation that is going to cause a lot of stress. And the reason I encourage you not to take an asset allocation that is going to expose you to a lot of volatility is that's when people blow out of their long-term allocation. That's when they make a change, but they tend to make a change, obviously, when things are scariest and the stock prices are low. And then they're locking in those losses. I don't want to see that happen to you. So I think better, let's lower the expenses. So let's go to the expense tab here. And we're lowering the expense down to $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year. And you can see here, now I've still got it at 70-30, but you can see here, boy, what a difference that makes, right? In this case, the worst case scenario is they run out of money a little after turning 82. The median case has them passing away, the dark line, the median, has them passing away with $500,000 still left that they can give to their heirs, to their kids, to causes that they care about. And if they get really lucky, look at that, they pass away with almost $3 million. So again, what I want to do here is I don't want you taking too much risk. So in the next portfolio, what I'm doing is I'm keeping the people spending $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year, but let's dial down the volatility of this portfolio. Let's take it back to a 50-50 stock portfolio. Now, I need to share that some people in my industry would say, hey, Azul, that's very conservative. Some people would say that's not conservative. In the right, there is no blanket right answer. I do think there's a right answer for you. And that's the allocation that you're going to be able to stick with in both good times and bad times. And you've worked really hard your whole life. You really don't want to have a lot of sleepless nights. So if you feel like you're on the edge of your comfort zone, I strongly encourage you to rethink that. The other thing I'll share is as we get older, it's just natural for all of us to become less risk seeking, to become more risk adverse, for the down days in the stock market to hurt a lot more. You know, I have this conversation with people when they retire, particularly people that have lived their whole life with 100% stock allocation, and they want to stay that way. And one of the things I share with them is you're going to look at volatility, you're going to look at risk differently, because for some people, having money in their investment account is really a way of keeping score. It doesn't keep them up at night when they lose money. But you know what? Once that's your entire nest egg for the rest of your life, it feels a lot different if that account is down 20, 30, 40%. And as a reminder, in 2008, 2009, the great financial crisis, top to bottom, the S&P 500, the largest companies in the US, that was down almost 60%, peak to trough. 57%, I think, is where it is. That takes your breath away. That's a feature of the stock market. It's not a bug. Is something like that going to happen again over the next 30 years? I don't know. 20 and 30% moves is just what the stock market does. So be ready for that. So again, I've taken the asset allocation back to 50-50. Let's go back to the portfolio. You can see the stock allocation is 50%. In this case, they're spending $60,000 a year, and I've dialed back the volatility. So the median cases, they pass away with $400,000. You can see now in the worst case scenario, they run out of money at 84. And in the best case, remember in the last one where they were 70% stock. In the best case, in that situation, they had $3 million. Here, they only have $2 million. So this looks like an outcome that a number of people would be comfortable. Again, I don't know your situation. This is not financial advice. But even with this, I want to point out that at 63, so when they first retire, the account starts going up. They feel really great about that. Right around 62 or 63, look at the drop. It goes down until they're about 67, and that drops down, let's call it $750,000. That's the kind of move that will keep some people up at night. So think long and hard about your asset allocation. I want to, again, have you think long and hard about working with a professional. You don't want to use a free online tool to decide whether to retire, but it can let you know whether you're in the ballpark. And I promised at the end, I was going to share with you what the name of the tool is. It's honestmath.com. I'm not affiliated. It's not sponsored. And I also want to encourage you to consider watching this video here where I talk about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. You've worked hard for your money. I want to make sure you enjoy it. I'll see you in there.